overheard a conversation and the people involved are just dying with laughter and you just don't get it. You don't know what's going on. You figured you've missed something. Because sometimes to know and to understand and to actually even figure out how you are to react, you have to know the context. You have to have the background. My niece Danielle, when she was, probably elementary school, used to have this little thing that she would use to flatter me when she wanted something. And I don't know if I told you this already. She used to say to me, "You are the favorite sister of my dad." And listening to that, you would say, how nice. But she would just be bursting with laughter because I'm the only sister her dad has. And my response to her would be, "You are the favorite child of my oldest brother." And that would send her just in a spin because she is her dad's only child. Context matters. You know, we tell children that they should use their inside voices because while on the playground you can be wild and crazy and noisy, there are places where you need to be quiet. Maybe the library at times, maybe the church at times. Context, the place, the time, it matters. And when we read the Bible stories, often the context where it takes place, who is involved, will make a difference to how we understand what is being said. So in today's gospel story, Matthew tells us that Jesus and his disciples enter Caesarea Philippi. They have traveled the roads leading to this district, going uphill actually, and they can look out and see the north, south, east, west apparent view of the city. This city that at one point the Greek held and built temples to the god Pan. Pan, who is the god of wilderness and desolate places, the god of shepherds, and the god of hunting. And when the Romans came and took over the city, Herod the Great built up that city to become the capital. He built palaces of limestone, gleaming buildings. Under the limestone walkway, there was a spring bubbling up. It was a center of industry, a center of military might, a center that was named for Caesar and then for Philip to show who they honored, the gods, the powers, the things that they held, the things that they followed and worshipped and obeyed. And it is in that place that Jesus asks, "Who do you say I am?" And when Peter says, "You are the Messiah, the Son of God," it is in fact more than an affirmation of faith. It is speaking to who is the center of Peter's life. It is speaking to who Peter will hold in authority. It is actually saying that despite all the powers and the show of man's greatness that is around us, I know who rules. I know that it is you, the one that God sends. It is you that I follow. It is you that will direct my course. It is huge. It is actually treason. It is going against popular thought to say that this man, this preacher, this teacher, this person who walks the streets, who has crossed borders and boundaries, who has healed the sick, who has made women part of his group of disciples, who has included people of all kinds of races and ethnicities. He is the one that I follow, says Peter. It is huge. And so when Jesus says to Peter, this doesn't come just because you know me from having followed me. You do learn about me that way, from hearing my teachings. That's one way you know about me. But it was laid on your heart by God himself. We know about Jesus, about who Jesus is, not only by listening to the stories about Jesus, not only by our encounters with him in our lives, but because God has laid it on our hearts to be open to who Jesus is. And then to become the rocks. This is what I was going to talk to the children about today. That like Peter, we are the rocks on which Jesus then builds a community that will continue the work. And we come in all shapes and sizes, but we can be as solid as any rock that builds up that city that was Caesarea Philippi. We are more lasting than that city. Jesus says nothing can prevail against this church that I built because of the people who are in it. We are the rock. And the silence that we sometimes have, that Jesus commanded Peter not to say anything as yet. But you know, after the resurrection, Peter is going to stand up and declare who Jesus is. Peter is going to live out the call to be a disciple. He is going to be one who will stand against all those authorities, the military might, the Caesars of the world, to declare that Jesus calls us to serve each other. Jesus calls us to care for the weak, the outcast, and the poor. We cannot be silent in some contexts. Yesterday, when we had the interfaith vigil against hate, it was one of those times when we could not, as a church, be silent. When we could not, as community of faith, be silent. Because we are sent out, as Paul says, not to conform, but to transform our communities. We're given grace and gifts, teachers and people who are compassionate and people who have ministries. We are each given, no matter what size we are, no matter what age, no matter what our gifts are, together as a church, we can make a difference. This is not the time to be silent. Our context tells us that we must speak out. We must speak out against anything that is against God's will in this world, God's purpose, God's love. We hear the messages that are brought out by people in our community, and we must stand and say, as a people of God, as members of this church, the church of God, this is not the will of God. We tell our children, we tell our neighbors, we tell each other that we believe in Jesus, who is the Messiah, the Son of God, and he has called us to love each other as we love him. At the end of the vigil yesterday, one of the clergy read a prayer which I would like to share with you. God of many names and understandings, we thank you for this day, for this time. We come to this place because we believe that love and compassion can overcome racial and ethnic divisions. We recognize and admit that those divisions are not only expressed in Charlottesville, Virginia, but in the communities that surround us and across our nation as well. You, O God, are the repairer of breach, and call each of us to be agents of reconciliation. In these moments when we are gathered here, may we be comforted and challenged. May we be instruments of your peace and a people who do our part to share your love with a broken world. May our words and actions in this place be a sign and seal of our dedication to doing your will throughout our earthly lives. It is not the time to be silent. Amen.
Amen.